honors those 12 Marlborough servicemen who answered their nation's call to remember the Maine and who died during that war. On Memorial Day, we commemorate those U.S. men and women who have died in military service to their country. Dear Lord, we ask that you remember these 12 Spanish-American War servicemen who made the ultimate sacrifice, and please continue to comfort their families and their supporting community of Marlborough. We as a community also ask that you keep all our current servicemen and women serving both far and near from harm's way. Amen.
Good morning. This morning I would like to deviate a little bit from our regular program as we have a memorial to a Marlborough veteran directly across from me. The band is now facing in that direction. The memorial is dedicated to U.S. Air Force Captain Robert Toussaint, who in January 1962 sacrificed his life by piloting his disabled jet into the Alabama River instead of ejecting and letting the jet crash into a populated area. He had 38 combat missions in Korea and was a member of the Marlborough class in 1949. Could we have a moment of silence, please? Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll go into our regular program. On this beautiful Memorial Day, the Marlborough Veterans Council wants to thank each and every one of you who marched in our parade or rode in our parade, and those who lined our streets to honor those veterans who are no longer with us in person, but I'm sure are here in spirit. We also thank our guest, Congresswoman Tsongas, State Senator Eldridge, State Representative Gregoire, Mayor Vigent, and the Marlborough City Council. And I would like to thank the city's fire department color guard for joining us in this parade. They do a great job. At the conclusion of our ceremonies, there is a collation, which means food, at the AMVETS on Fitchburg Street. They've moved down to where the old VFW used to be, and where we still are. Before I introduce our guest speaker, it is my pleasure to introduce U.S. Congresswoman Nikki Tsongas to say a few words.
Morning, and thank you for inviting me to join you today as we observe Memorial Day and remember those whose lives were lost in defense of our nation and the beliefs and values that we cherish. Today we honor the great patriots who paid the ultimate price in service of their country. On this day in particular, I reflect on the sacrifices our military families make as they watch their loved ones leave our great nation for faraway lands where enemies and strife are promised. They too exhibit extraordinary patriotism and courage. I remember my father, an Air Force colonel, a civil engineer, and a survivor of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. a man who by his own example taught me the meaning of service to our country. His memory is with me as I am in Congress, particularly in my work on the House Armed Services Committee. On Mother's Day weekend this year, I took my 5th trip to Afghanistan. Traveling with 5 other members of Congress, we visited with coalition commanders, Afghan civilians, and our brave U.S. soldiers. It is always so important to let them know that their sacrifice is never forgotten and that they remain in our thoughts despite serving half a world away. I am always most grateful for the incredible selflessness and skill with which they continue to serve us. How fortunate we are. With my father's memory in mind and the memory of all those who have served from the 3rd Congressional District, I will continue to dedicate my time in Congress to honoring our commitment to those who serve on our behalf, both with the policies we pursue and the work we do in our district office here in the 3rd District. We are the beneficiaries of their courage, their sacrifice, and their vigilance, and I thank them.
Now, if we could have State Senator Jamie Eldridge, who will read a proclamation.
Good morning. I'm honored to read this proclamation from our Governor, Deval L. Patrick. Whereas, while the nation was still recovering from the horrors of the Civil War, people in cities and towns across the country gathered to honor those Union and Confederate soldiers who had given their lives, celebrating the first Decoration Day. And whereas, after World War I, the nation came together again to honor those who had fallen in the service of their country. Renamed Memorial Day, the last Monday in May is when people remember and honor the memory of all the men and women who fought and died in all American wars and conflicts. And whereas, through our country's history, thousands of Massachusetts citizens have fought in wars and conflicts to defend our safety and way of life. And whereas their legacy of patriotism and dedication to country is an inspiration to all Americans. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who gave their lives so that their sacrifices served as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. Now therefore, I, Deval L. Patrick, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, do hereby proclaim May 27, 2013 to be Memorial Day, and urge all the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this 30th day of April in the year 2013, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 236th, by His Excellency Deval L. Patrick. Once again, thank you for having me.
And now it's my pleasure. I would like to introduce Marlborough's Mayor, Arthur Vigil. We'll say a few words.
Good morning. Those of you that have come from out of town, welcome to the city of Marlborough. Memorial Day is a special day. Many of you may take the time to go down to a cemetery to visit someone that you've lost and loved over the years. While you're down there, pay attention to all the marked graves with the flags of our veterans that have lost their lives. Take a moment to read the names and think about their sacrifices, what they've put on the line to allow us to have events like this today, Labor Day, or religious gatherings of any religion. People over the last few years have tried to take these freedoms away from us. We can never let that happen. We can never give up. So as you leave today, have the opportunity at a cookout, thank one of the veterans that you meet today, because they're the ones that are making the sacrifice to allow us to continue our freedoms into the future. Thank you.
Now I'd like to introduce our Veterans Agent, Gary Brown, who will say a few words. Very good. Very good. Very good.
Please do not lose sight of the reason for this day. Our national treasure was spilled on the battlefields to pay for this day off from work and school.
Wow. And now I am pleased to introduce our guest speaker, State Representative Danielle Gregoire. Danielle is a lifelong resident of Marlborough and a graduate of our public schools and St. Anselm's College. She serves as a legislative aide in the 4th Middlesex District while attending Suffolk Law in the evenings. Danielle first served as state representative from 2009-2010. She rejoined the legislature in January 2013. Representative Gregoire currently serves as a member of the Joint Committees on Transportation, Economic Development, Emerging Technologies, Children, Families, and Persons with Disabilities, and the House Committee on Post-Audit and Oversight. Please welcome Danielle Gregoire.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to the Veterans Council for having me here this morning. It's truly quite an honor to be in front of you today. All gave some gave all. Today, we remember those who have given their lives in service to our country. Today, we celebrate the nation that we love so much, and today we appreciate the freedom that the men and women of our military work so very hard every day to provide for us. Since I last stood before you 4 years ago to deliver remarks on this solemn occasion, Massachusetts has lost 27 more of her military sons and daughters. That number includes my friend from St. Anselm College, Marine Captain Kyle R. Van de Giesen of North Attleboro, who perished in a helicopter crash just 2 weeks prior to his return home for the birth of his second child. That number includes SPC Mitchell K. Dowling, laid to rest just last week. On Memorial Day, we gather to rededicate ourselves to freedom's cause. We are also reminded on this day that in each generation, brave men and women will step forward to take the oath of allegiance as members of our armed forces, willing to pay the ultimate price for our freedom. We must continue to honor that memory by taking care of their families, committing to support their comrades, and banding together as a community, a state, and a nation to ensure that no member of our military feels underserved by the very nation they are called to defend. Just weeks ago, just miles from where we stand, and in the very cradle of our democracy, we were all reminded that the battle for freedom wages on. We were all touched in some way by the tragic events of the Marathon bombings. Those lives that were taken as part of a battle that wages on far from Boylston Street and the finish line of the Boston Marathon, the war on terror. Crystal Campbell, Martin Richard, Lindsay Lou, and Sean Collier had their hopes and dreams stolen from them all too soon. But if today tells us anything, it's that we can and must pledge our love and support to their families and to all of the victims of this senseless act of cowardice. We must also support our troops each and every day, and we must keep vigilant in fighting this war on terror. At noon today, flags across America will be raised to full staff as a demonstration of our resolve not to let these sacrifices be in vain, and as a sign that the fight continues for liberty and justice for all. When I sat to compose my remarks for today, I came across a quote from President Abraham Lincoln, and his message is as true today as it was at the Gettysburg Address in 1863. President Lincoln said, "The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain." When I stood before you previously, I mentioned my grandfathers and my father, military all, and my personal gratitude to them and all of our armed forces, past and present, for securing my freedom. I also pled with you to always remember those who have paid the ultimate price to make our nation great and to elevate the dignity of all humanity. Act, as you have done by coming here today to demonstrate your honor of the dead and by serving those who live. And never forget. It is with these thoughts in mind and the fond remembrance and celebration of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice that we go forth this day with the knowledge that, as the late Senator Kennedy said, the work goes on, the cause endures, the hopes still live, and the dreams shall never die. God bless America and all who defend her.
It was a very nice address, Daniel. Appreciate it. Before the band plays the Star Spangled Banner, may we have a moment of silence for those servicemen and women who are still in harm's way. Thank you. Thank you.